So with the new rules, are on the fly rules when it comes down to the concussion protocol, Mark,
Yep.
you got to be very careful, especially with the quarterback position. Um, and I look at Tua in the same arena. I look at Luke Kuechly. So Luke Kuechly had to shut it down off of his concussions when it
Mm-hmm.
to that inside linebacker position. And if you look at concussions, it can get very scary. I look at concussions like how I look at boxers. Once a boxer get knocked out or get hit in the jaw, they tend to have a glass chin, if you know what I'm saying. I knew some elite boxers, once they lost off of a knockout, they couldn't be the same anymore. I looked at Luke Kuechly. Once Luke started getting concussions, it was tough to just have him play year after year after year. And the same thing I'm looking at Tua. And the reason why I'm looking at Tua like that, I looked at Tua like Tua didn't get hit in the head. Tua wound up getting slammed to the ground, and his head wound up hitting the ground. So from that part, I looked at it as a short week because they played on Sunday. They wound
Mm-hmm.
up coming back on a Thursday against the Cincinnati Bengals. Got slammed on the head, and that changed my whole mind frame. I'm like, man, when you see a guy whose body does that in a short week, that's not good. So for the Miami Dolphins, hopefully they go through the concussion protocol as detailed as anybody else, because by the end of the day, he is your franchise quarterback for now, but safety comes first. You know, us as athlete, and I'm talking as an athlete, you have to police my decisions, if you know what I'm saying. So all I know is playing hurt, being hurt, not worrying about concussions, getting back on the field to play with my teammates. And as a staff, and I'm not talking about as a coaching staff, because as a coaching staff, you're just going off what the medical staff tells you. So if the medical staff says you clear, hey, I got my one of my best players back. And for the Miami Dolphins, they haven't looked the same when Tua wasn't playing. We saw the first three games, they was clicking on all cylinders, whether it was Waddle or Cheetah. Them boys was making plays. We always knew Miami had a defense because they've been having a defense. When Brian Flores started trading players and started getting first round draft picks when he was the head coach, they wound up helping their defensive side.
Yep.
Later on, when he was the head coach, he wound up tuning in some on the offensive side. Once the new coach came in, he said, man, let me get a few pieces on the offensive line. Let me get me a running back who I know can stretch for me. I already got a tight end. And let me get two receivers that can help Tua out and send him back to Alabama. What I mean by that is let me get two guys who he feel like that's always open. Between Waddle and Cheetah, they always open. So Tua get him the ball. That's exactly what happened.
Yes.
So when you see Tua get hurt, it's like, damn, there's no rhythm on the offensive side. The offense don't look like the offense when Tua is not in. So that's the value that Tua brings when he's on the field, regardless of whether we want to say he has a strong arm or he's not as accurate. I know from an eye test, and you see it as an eye test, when Tua is not on the field for the Miami Dolphins, that offense don't look the same.
And I found those numbers, Ike. The Dolphins have dropped the 2 games where Tua has not played, bringing their record to 3-3. At the time of his injury, Tua was leading the league in QBR. He ranked second in passing yards and third in touchdowns. So that dynamic duo on the outside with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, it was a prolific offense. And Ike, if the Steelers are going to beat the Dolphins, I want to see him do it straight up with Tua on the field healthy. Now, it's not to say I don't want the Steelers to get after Tua, but I don't want to see him get hurt in the way where his fingers are being held up to where when he sustained his second concussion, like it was just a bad look. And when they kept replaying the same play over and over again, it was just a jarring visual, Ike.
Me too. I think Tua had a press. I think he had a press conference on. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. Like Tua said, he don't remember. Like he said, it was bad. Off his second one, he don't remember it was bad. So when you say that, that's not a good thing. Now, like I said, the medical staff for the Miami Dolphins, if they feel like he's been through all the concussion protocols and he's cleared to play, cool. But at the same time, we talk about back-to-back games where he had a concussion the game before, and he wobbled off. a couple of steps later. Then the next game, he wound up having a very serious concussion. So that's telling me that he wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't ready to play that Thursday game.
Yeah.
His brain was still going through trauma from that Sunday game. That's all that was telling me. And I could be 100% wrong. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, off of all the injuries I've seen, the concussions I've been seeing all my 12 years of football, like, your brain does need a break.
Well,
Your
like,
brain,
neither of us are doctors, but the fact that the league changed its rules mid-season after all this happens is what more proof do you need?
correct. So with Tua, I'm gonna see. Tua was honest at his press conference, and he said exactly what happened. He said exactly what he feels. So I'm cool with that. But he's have had enough rest. So really, it's just a lot of prayers and and healthiness going towards Tua. I hope Miami is doing the right thing by understanding they clearing everything. They checking off every box when it comes down to Tua playing quarterback. So we shall see. And you made a statement earlier. You want to see Pittsburgh play Tua at Miami strength. I really don't care. So I'm in all of the player safety rather than somebody's coming back. So I'd rather play a 70% Dolphins and Tua's health is more important
That's
than
true. Yeah.
100% Dolphins and Tua's health is sitting at 60. But in our mind, as analysts and fans of the game, we want to see teams at their strength. And I get exactly what you're saying. From my perspective as a player, I don't even want you out there because I'm thinking about football long after football. So this is where I'm at with it when it comes down to the player safety. And I think the NFL on the fly, and this is talking about 3 weeks ago, have done a good job of adjusting. I think they're one of the only professional sports that can adjust in a week or two, depending on the situation. So, yeah, for Pittsburgh, regardless, by the end of the day, you're only getting paid by the W's, and that's the win. So, regardless of who's at quarterback or not, and we can't forget, Teddy Bridgewater once was a starting
Mm-hmm.
quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings at one point in time, and until his knee injury, he was playing at a high level.
I know he had some injuries though too, Ike, where, the Dolphins again had to go to their third stringer, if I'm not mistaken. But what I wanted to ask you, Ike, is in your 12-year career, did you ever experience a concussion, anything similar to what happened with Tua during his injury?
Yeah, not to that magnitude. Not to that magnitude of not knowing what happened. Not to that magnitude of forgetting. Not to that kind of extreme. But yeah, concussions, I'm sure for sure. Um, to that extent, nah, Mark. I haven't experienced, but I've seen it so many times. I remember when Ryan Clark hit McGahee coming
Yep.
out the back. That was the same instance. I remember when James Harrison hit Josh Cribbs, and he
Yep.
wound up hitting McCoy in the same game. So I've seen it, not me being a part of it, but I've seen it on other ends where my teammates have hit guys that hard. And you've seen that kind of movement, and it's a very scary situation, because by the end of the day, I'm cool with breaking every bone in my body. I'm cool with the ACL. I'm cool with the MCL, PCL. I'm cool with a broken face. But dealing with the brain ain't something to be cool about.
Yeah. Ike, I'll keep my ACL if that's okay with you.
I got you.
You mentioned the Ryan Clark McGahee hit in the AFC Championship game. That was like a car crash. And go back and watch that one. I think that happened after Troy Polamalu's pick six in that one, but I just remember that collision where it was just like
It, Mark, it was bad. Like when you see grown men get hit that hard and they get to snoring, like they're asleep and they're snoring. Ain't nothing, ain't nothing cool about that, Mark.
yeah.
And I'm up close in person. I'm not even front row. I'm live in action, you know. And you see a grown man sitting there snoring, and when their eyes get to blinking, 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 and they wake up in a panic, like, what the hell am I? You know what I'm saying? And you hear the doctors ask the question like, what state you in? Man, I'm in Alaska. Hell nah, you in Pittsburgh. So for sure your ass ain't coming back. in the game, and that's very serious. We just don't know how many times when we talk about concussions that guys have had it. Mark, you played football
Yep.
at time. I know when I got to the league, I've learned more, and it was much more safer when I got to the league. When I was playing pee wee, when I was playing middle school, high school, all my coaches taught me was, hit the head, the body will follow. You know what I'm saying? So eventually I wasn't taught properly. When I got to the league, it was much more a lead with your shoulder pads than your head. You can come off of shoulder injuries, and when you get older, man, shoulder injuries might bother you. You might can't raise your right or your left arm as high as you once could, but by the end of the day, you'll rather that than the brain. You
Yep.
know, so I saw the transition. Even while I was playing, I saw the transition of the league going into safeties. But when I first got to the league, Mark, hit the head, the body will follow. That's exactly what the motto was as players for us players. The coaches, nah, the coaches did everything in their favor. It's just when you out on the field, the guys get the ducking. It's just like having a car wreck. When you see you about to get into an accident, what's the first thing naturally your body does? It goes into a shell. So you tend to duck. Same way when the offensive player sees he's about to get hit by a defensive player, they wind up. I'm sorry. They wind up going into a shell to protect, and now that takes the aiming part of the defender. You know what I'm saying? So, but they changed their game right now, man. I'm talking about even at a middle school, high school level, they're emphasizing hitting with the shoulder pads. And now, in the league, man, if you go too many times to the head, they're taking your game check and you get suspended. So,
Yeah, a lot has changed. I remember when I played, it was like, "Oh, you're woozy. You're woozy." I remember that hearing that, and concussions started to become more of a thing.
right?
I remember in high school, my senior year, and this wasn't even after a big hit or collision or anything. I had a teammate where our practices would be structured the same way each day. We'd do run, teach, run, test, pass, teach, pass, test. And we're getting into the 7-on-7s for pass test. And one of my teammates, who is a defensive back, says, "Hey, when are we doing run, teach, run test?" And it was like, my teammate, his name's Matt. It's like, "Matt, we did that 10 or 15 minutes ago." And he had no idea.
It's real.
He had
Mark,
no idea.
it's real. Unless you play and you play, boy, it's real out there on the field. I mean, it's what I've been saying for the longest. Football is organized violence.
Yeah.
And in order to play that sport, especially at a high level, you gotta have a few screws left loose. So you mean to tell me, hold on, Ike, you got excited and running to a grown man at 185 pounds? You got excited and running to a guy who's 370, 350, and not think twice about it and thought it was cool? Yes. Oh yeah, some of your screws ain't tight up there, bro. Ain't no way some of your screws tight. But Mark, if that's all you know, that's all you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I know this too, at least in the Ivy League. I don't think they tackle in practice anymore. And I know there have been a lot of changes. So you want everyone to stay safe.